No, thank you, Katie, and thank you, Reverend Taffel, also for welcoming me into this beautiful space today. It's so good to be here. I also actually want to thank somebody who's not present today, but who's spoken here before, Ben Cook, who leads the Purpose Lab, because I believe that there are no accidents in how we all come to share a moment in time together. And Ben's the protagonist in one of the threads that brought me to be here today. But first, I want to think for you to think for a second about how you came to be here. So, not just the drive over, but I mean further back, the people you met along the way, the gut feeling that you followed, even when it didn't fully make sense. How many things had to happen in all of our very different lives for us to end up together this evening? What are the signs, the nudges, the threads that, if you trace them backwards, might reveal how you were guided here? The first thread of how I ended up speaking here with you actually started in 2020. Okay. It's a month before the pandemic. Our family was at the end of our sabbatical year in Argentina. And I was very intentional about writing down all the things that I wanted to call into my life. I wrote a lot of things, but one stands out. I wrote, I find my tribe. 1 week later, I posted in a Facebook group in Texas asking about bilingual schools for my children, and a woman named Carolina responded. I clicked on her profile and immediately saw the banner of her school, La Tribu, the tribe. 1 week after pen to paper, goosebumps ran up my arm, what I later call confirmation bumps. Carolina is the one that introduced me to Ben. Both of us in the business of educational camps for kids, Ben and I connected and spent the next year trying to create something meaningful for kids in that challenging time during the pandemic. Now, around that same time, I was talking with a friend about how much I wished I could share the magic of the Patagonia with other people. Not like tourism, but something deeper. And for the first time, the word retreat came into my awareness. And when it did, it lit me up. And back to Ben, after a year of creative endeavors with Ben, nothing came of our educational work, except that we knew that there was resonance. So then, days after dreaming up this word of dreaming about retreats, a text from Ben comes through mentioning the Purpose Lab. I thought, interesting, that's like not camp business. Then I mentioned I'd be staying in the Texas Hill Country, and Ben responds, am I hearing Hill Country retreat? Cue the confirmation bumps. And well, that became the first of several retreats that Ben and I would create together. The spiritual side of things, right? But even today, that thread is still in play. Who knew that 4 words in my journal, I find my tribe, would eventually lead me to be here with you? But to understand how I really got here, I have to go a little bit further back, before Ben and long before that journal entry. So people ask me all the time, how on earth did you end up living in this teeny tiny town in the Patagonia? So I have to take you back to 1998. I was a young school teacher. My very first teaching assignment brought me to this little mountain town in southern Argentina to teach English. At the end of my year, I went back to Texas because at the time, this town was just too small for my big or maybe busy dreams. So I went back to the States and built a very different life. I went back to teaching. I became eventually a military wife, a mother of 2. I started a business, the educational camp for kids. I was going nonstop with literally a baby on my back, running a camp with 30 kids, including my own, mommy and camp director in the same breath, putting the kids to bed at night and staying up to handle all the admin. I loved it. It was great. And it was exhausting, but felt somehow completely normal. I mean, isn't that what supermom's supposed to do? So in 2014, we take a family vacation to my little mountain town. And there we are. We're riding up the ski lift into the Andes. And my husband, he looks at me and he says, what if we lived here for a year? My immediate response was like, yeah, amazing. What? No, huh? I thought he was crazy. But we talked about it for months. And finally, I asked him a different question. Imagine it's 5 years from now and we didn't do it. How do you feel? We both knew the answer: regret. So in 2018, we closed the back door. We packed up everything. We sold the house and we made the move. I didn't know then that this thread, Patagonia, was created to teach me how to slow down enough to actually hear myself. Gus, God, universe, spirit, had to take my multitasking, fast driving self and put me in a town without a single stoplight, with a whole culture around the lunchtime siesta. And that's how I finally learned how to slow my roll. So first I resisted, right? I worked through the lunch hour, but then I started napping or hiking at midday like the rest of the town instead of playing catch up. Then came the journaling and the meditating. And the next thing you know, I'm painting mandalas, not just mandalas, dot mandalas. Y'all, not much gets slower than dot by dot. Okay. And I loved it. But more importantly, it made me make space. Turns out that each center dot of my mandala was leading me to find my own center. And somewhere in that space, a gift appeared, a book called A Gift from the Sea, written by Anne Morrow Lindbergh back in 1955. In it, a 1950s mom and housewife describes the need for a still center within the revolving wheel of life. I resonated with it instantly. And that was what my mandalas had been teaching me. And once I found that stillness, I found presence. I began to hear my inner knowing and to see spirit where I once might have seen coincidence. And I started trusting myself in a whole new way. Now, this is how that newfound expansion showed up one sunny day in 2020. It's near the end of the sabbatical year in Argentina. We're supposed to be packing up and heading back to Texas in just a few months. And I'm driving through the Andes. The windows are down and I'm singing my heart out. And I feel this joy just bubble up within me. And out of nowhere, a wave of clarity comes flooding in. And from the depths, this raw, guttural cry belts out. I'm not ready to go. It wasn't a whisper. No, it was my soul shouting loud and clear, louder than I had ever heard it. And then I burst into tears. I wasn't sad. I was shaken by the raw truth of it and unsure what to do with it. And in all honesty, I swallowed that truth and I started packing up and selling everything to go back to Texas anyway. And a few weeks later, the world hit pause. Flights grounded, borders closed. I remember laughing through my tears, thinking, okay, God, that's a little much for my request. So we stayed. We started dreaming about building a real home here. But when the borders finally lifted and the world opened back up, everything had shifted. I had felt relieved. My husband felt stuck, like he had to get back. And when it became clear that his trip back was going to be one way, I had a choice to make. That's when I started letting go of the shoulds and the expectations and what I thought life was supposed to look like. I've been notoriously indecisive my whole life, but this decision felt different. It felt less like a decision and more like my soul making a declaration. So the boys and I stayed in this small town tucked in the mountains with only a sliver of this newfound trust in my own soul's compass. I did not have it figured out. I couldn't even explain it to the people who asked, and they asked. I just knew somewhere underneath the fear was a certainty that this is where I'm supposed to be. From this vantage point, I can see that I stayed because I listened to my soul instead of my fear. And I've come to believe that part of his role in my story was to bring me here. I honor everything we both gave and gave up, for each of us to follow our own divine paths. Looking back, I see it was all perfectly designed. I thought I was taking a sabbatical. What I really needed was a return to source. Patagonia gave me the mandala, a way to steady my center and become quiet enough to hear my own soul. And in that quiet, I started noticing something. The camp work, something I'd loved for years, wasn't waking me up with the same spark anymore. Mandalas did, retreats did, anything spiritual did. I did not know yet how the two would come into alignment, only that I was learning to follow before I understood the whole path, one whisper at a time. Eventually, I chose to release the camp altogether because it was no longer where my purpose was calling me. I never would have believed you back then that I'd go from camp director to the mystical healing arts. But that's what these threads keep teaching me, an unseen purpose woven through the divine detours of our lives. Sometimes we see the thread that's unfolding, and sometimes it stays a mystery, tucked away in the subtle realms until we're ready to see it. Some call it serendipity. Some call it magic or a miracle. I learned that in your tradition, you call it correspondence. And I love that. Whatever we call it, I believe it takes presence to notice. And this last story is one of those threads I had the privilege of noticing. Back to 1998, it's my first official teaching gig, 5,000 miles from home. I arrive in this tiny town and I don't know a soul. The family who's supposed to host me is out of town. The sister is house sitting, a woman named Billy. And she's the one that opens the door and welcomes me in instead. As a proper hostess, she wants to show me around. So she takes me to their family farm, deep in the Patagonian countryside. And y'all, when I say rustic, I mean rustic. No running water, no electricity, just a hand pump and lanterns, okay? So we're sitting together, drinking mate, telling each other about our lives. And she mentions that she once lived in Texas for a year. So of course, we start comparing stories. Eventually, she goes to find a box of old photographs from 1988. She pulls it out and starts showing me pictures. And there, in the box, in the middle of the Patagonian wilderness, is a photo of a photograph. Do you remember those enormous school class pictures that like panoramic ones that you unroll like a scroll to fit everyone in it? Okay, I'm looking at a picture of that picture. And there she is. She points the picture of her son. And a few faces down, there I am, 80s big hair and all. And a few faces down from that is the man I would later marry. In the middle of the Patagonia, buried in a decade-old photo box, is a picture of us both. A little piece of evidence that our story had been weaving itself together long before either of us knew where it was going. I've thought about those moments, that photograph, many times, especially in the moments I've questioned my choice or wondered whether I was on the right path. And every time it reminds me that some of the most important threads in our lives are being woven long before we can see the pattern. Maybe that's the mystery of the divine detours. We make our choices, we follow the whispers, we take the next step, and somewhere beyond what we can see, the threads are always connecting us for our highest good. I couldn't have planned this life, but looking back, I can see beautifully it was being woven all along. So I invite you to take a look at the threads, the signposts, the confirmations that weave through your own story. They're hard threads, heartbreaking ones, things we may never understand. But what happens if instead of looking at one thread at a time, we zoom out and allow ourselves to see the larger pattern, to look for the beauty in the divine order of our lives? And if you're wondering, well, how do I actually do that? You don't have to paint mandalas, although there is magic there. For me, it started in a simple daily practice of journaling, not just recording what happened during my day, but creating enough stillness to listen for what was underneath it. Spirit started speaking very clearly to me in those moments. And eventually, those entries became what I now call the soul whispers, little messages I send out, whatever comes through when I stop and simply listen. And you don't have to call them soul whispers. You might call it prayer, meditation, intuition, or a conversation with God. The name matters less than creating space to hear it. the important question to ask is, what is this here to show me? The more I've practiced that, the more I've certain that I've become, not in what's going to happen next, but my connection to something larger than what I can see. Even the parts I don't understand, the parts that hurt, I can trust that they belong to something unfolding for my highest good. And that's it. That's the practice. It's a little like a mandala. I start with the stillness of the center dot and paint outward, one dot at a time, without knowing exactly how the whole thing will evolve. I just trust the next dot. I don't have to see the whole painting. Maybe life asks us to do the same. Come back to center. Become still enough to hear the whisper. Notice the threads and follow them, even when we don't yet know where they're leading. As Lindbergh wrote, when we start at the center of ourselves, we discover something worthwhile extending toward the periphery of the circle. We find again some of the joy in the now, some of the peace in the here, some of the love in the me and the thee, which go to make up the kingdom of heaven on earth. Beautifully said. So I'll return to my original question. What thread brought you here today? I'd love to hear about it.
Wow, Zia, I'll just start by saying thank you so much. I loved your presentation. You were like sunshine personified. I loved everything that you shared. I also thought it was so immersive how you were changing the background as you were talking. I never saw somebody do that before. So I'll just say I loved it. And I definitely wrote down how you said, listen to your soul instead of fear. So thank you so much. And I'll pass it to the room or online to see if anyone had a question or if anyone would like to answer the question that you proposed.
Thank you, Katie.
Are you in Patagonia right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm looking at the Cordillera Los Andes, the Andes Mountains.
Wow.
Yeah. If it weren't so technologically complicated, I would turn it all around so you can see it, but everything would fall apart.
Oh, it was beautiful. Did you have a question? Okay, we have a question in person.
Yeah.
I was struck when you said that it's in the stillness that you find that the divine can actually be most revelatory to you. Could you just expand on that idea?
And the stillness. Yeah, I mean, I was a very busy person. My nature is to go, go, go and produce, produce, produce. And I really noticed that when I got still and quiet, that there were a lot of messages God had to share with me. And there was like static. The busyness was static. And so, literally there are no stoplights or stop signs in this town. That's how like really slow. So it was a little bit of an emergency. Come here and slow all the way down so that I could be still enough to hear. And I really do believe that when we center ourselves, whether it's with breath work or meditation or sound or nature, prayer, intention, um, that there's a lot that wants to come through. But our typical worlds are kind of running fast. And we need to be intentional about creating space to listen to the messages that are there for us. Um, and when we do, it's amazing how much more guided I feel when I take that time.
Reverend Tafel had suggested, that we journal. And
Oh, you're mutable again, Alpha. You accidentally went on mute. Just hit that button one more time, sweetie. There
There
you
you go.
go.
well, what I'm saying is, I'm so against journaling, it's so against my nature. But he suggested it, Now you are suggesting it, and it seems to me that I really desperately need it because I'm so confused inside, about all the various impressions that I had to live through lately. So thank you very much for your strong opinion on journaling and getting out of a rut that way.
Yeah. It helps us kind of get out of our own way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I don't know that you necessarily asked this, but one of the things that helped me, I was a journaler from long back, but it used to be like a report of everything, of what was happening in my day. And then I wouldn't ever really get to like, you know what I mean? Like I'd fill up pages with what I did every day. What I started doing was capturing that in a different, like a 5-year journal, like the highlights, the boys went skiing today. We had a great dinner, whatever. And then sat down and said, what do you want me to know? And I just started listening to God that way, listening to spirit. And I would just start writing. And I was extraordinary what came through when I started listening that way. But it kind of had to put away like my to-do lists, It almost has to
Right,
go over
right.
here separately, like, oh, that's the other stuff, that's the practical stuff of life. And now, like, what are the big questions? Like, what's really important? And it just always knocks my socks off because when I think I'm going to ask this question, it's like, no. This is what's important. So yeah, this. And it's always much simpler than this is than this makes it out to be. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
I want to thank you. Oh dear, I'm hearing me twice.
Oh, there. Okay, there. I was wondering where it was coming from. Hi, Chris.
Are you hearing me twice?
Yeah.
Nope.
No,
Just hearing you once.
just once.
Well, let me take off my headphones. That way I'm not going crazy. The one thing that I did like was particularly, I think sometimes it's not just the still small voice. Sometimes you got to get whacked upside the head, and sent into whatever it is you're going to do. My own personal thing actually does partly involve this church. I live in Michigan. I am a layperson and I am a female. And so I got the chance, and I still use this as a chance, a lucky thing to become the first female lay president of the Swedenborgian Church ever. Now, how did I get there? Certainly, I said no. I said no so many times, but I finally went to who were the elders in my world for the church, and they went, "Oh yeah, no problem, Chris. You'll do great, fine." Well, for the next 6 years of my life, I learned I might be great once in a while, but I'm telling you, it was a great way to learn prayer. Because I got nothing here, but I met some terrific people, among them Elsa and Rich certainly, who kept telling me elevator speech, Chris, elevator speech. The Irishman in me is going, I don't do elevator speeches. I do entire books, but the truth is, I think what I've heard you say is kind of a it's not only the joy is in the journey, it's kind of like finally identifying the journey and asking, is this the right one? And so it's conversation. And I appreciate all you said. Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations for being the first woman
No, no, no,
president
no,
there. Beautiful. My guess is that you have many, many gifts to share.
no. No, I got old enough. They've all dribbled out.
Ah, hooey.
I
Reverend
see
Tafel,
Rich's
nice
hand
to
is
meet
raised.
you.
Zia, well, first of all, you're a beautiful storyteller. That was just a pleasure listening to you. I know you've worked at that and you have a natural gift for that. So, first of all, that's my initial observation. And so much practical in the storytelling. I love the synchronicity and paying attention to the connections. Of course, the photograph is, jaw dropping. Um, and I've often said in my own life that I don't believe because it's an abstraction. I believe because I've had experience, I have evidence. And your story was the story of evidence. Like this happened, but you were paying attention to the evidence. You didn't write it off. What I was curious about is if someone you coach a lot of people, you have retreats, and if somebody comes to you and says, "This is all good, I don't know where to start." You ended up going to Patagonia, you did this, you did that. Like I'm in a busy world. I'm a busy Washingtonian. It's a crazy life. Where is the first Mandela spot start? How would you get me started? Would it be a retreat? Would it be journaling? Would it be meditation? What would you say to someone who just says, I don't even know how to start in this crazy world?
Yeah, such a great question. Thank you. And I think it's probably pretty unique for each individual, but I think it's finding the space, right? And listening for what you're called to slow down and where you can be still and carve out a little bit of time for yourself to really listen. And, for me, it was mandalas that I was like, oh, I love doing this. And before I know it, my kitchen table is covered with paint. I'm like, oh, I've got to get dinner ready. I stop. And when I saw my husband and the kids being like, no, 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 stay there. I was like, oh, hmm. Maybe something's happening here that's also rippling out into my environment. And so, like, maybe it's mandalas, maybe it's drawing, maybe it's writing, maybe it's chanting, singing, going for a walk and just listening, and putting the tech down for a little bit. I think that it's finding a moment to connect and then listening and trusting that like your soul compass, to me, it's just like an alignment with spirit. And when we can kind of quiet it down enough and turn down the volume of the static, whether it's meditation, like I said, or breath work, I've done a little bit of all of those things. And I think it's different for different people. Yoga, nature, gardening. Uh, but it's being intentional about finding the space, I think, and then really listening. And I like the journaling because you tend to capture it, And so I say to people who don't want to write something or, like even a voice memo, like what are you noticing? Be a little capture the miracles because one starts connecting to another. And before you know it, you have this beautiful thread of beautiful synchronicities and happy moments and evidence of spirit in your life.
That's really beautiful. It's essentially the thread there was find a way to listen, whatever works for you, but start listening and trust.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions in person? Kelly? Okay.
What a cool little thing you got over there. I like it.
The owl.
Yeah, the owl is
Yeah, the
cool.
meeting owl. Yeah, yeah, that was cool. Thank you, Zia. I liked what you said about like your decision about to stay in Patagonia, how you chose to listen to your soul instead of your fear.
Mm.
I'm wondering if you have any advice on how we can distinguish that voice between the voice of fear and the voice of your
Mm.
soul. Because at least for me, a lot of times the voice of fear sounds very practical at face value or pragmatic. And so
Mm-hmm.
how do we distinguish those and know which one's coming from God or from spirit?
Oh, that's a really great question. Um, well, I'll tell you, I mean, I think that there are different ways for different people. One of the things that I actually use a pendulum a lot of times to connect with source and um, listen for guidance. But I do believe that that's also within you. And so there are little practices that you can do with yourself to check in and see, like, you know, hand on your heart, show me, connecting with God, show me truth, show me even if you practice, okay, this is a little practice. I'm not sure how far to go with this, but this is a little practice that I do. And I might say, okay, center in your body for a moment, take a deep breath, and say your name. My name is Zia, and show me truth to that. So that you're saying that a truth, my name is, and then you might stand up even because you can feel your body going front or back or side to side, or your breath in different places. You can just kind of feel, what does truth feel like? So if I say my name is Zia. Is my name Zia? And then I feel my body move forward. And if I say, my name is Frank, is my name Frank? And I feel something different in my body. And so my body can feel resonance with truth or not, a yes or a no. Is this from spirit, or is this my monkey mind going on? And the little practices that you can do that with, you can, ask yourself, your soul, spirit, however you speak to the divine, and say, is it optimal for me to have the salad or the soup? And there are little practices that you can say, like, what's optimal for me right now? What's in my highest interest? And then you can hold the thing. Is this the apple or the chocolate bar? and listen and let your body and your connection to source really guide you in like little things. And then you kind of start tuning up this practice of what is truth and what is not, And there are different ways, like with my son, I would teach him like this, like, make a little loop with one finger and another one like this, and make it to where you can't pull your fingers apart. Okay, like this. And then, my name is Zia. Truth? Yes. My name is Frank. And no, not true. And so there are little ways like this that you can begin to tune yourself up to what is in alignment, what is truth, what is for your highest good, on little levels. But again, like, if you notice that, what does it take? You can't be doing that and rushing off, with a million things going on and taking the to-do list over here and all the things. You've got to get still for a second to be able to even do that, to even ask. And so I do believe it comes back to that stillness and finding a way, breath work, journaling, meditation, to listen and ask the question. But I ask in my journal, like, what do you want me to know today? And if you have that question, like, what is optimal for me to, like, travel north or staycation this summer? What do you want of me? What would be in the highest service? What would have me shine my light? And then I listen and I write. Sometimes people write with their non-dominant hand, so the brain doesn't get so much in the way. So those are a couple of little tips of ways that I help people kind of tune into themselves.
Thank you so much, Zia. I'll see if there's anyone else with a question or comment in person or online before I highlight something in the chat. Do we have any other questions for Zia? James? Oh, okay. Okay, that's okay. I'll just highlight what Kevin put in the chat. He said, Mandala was a huge part of my own spiritual journey. What a wild synchronicity with the photo. Thank you for sharing your beautiful message. And I'll just personally echo all of the thanks. I really loved your presentation, Zia, and I especially love all the practical applications. That's something our community really loves. And I think, too, the journaling recommendation that you shared, I feel is a very practical recommendation for people in DC, because I like to paint too, and I also journal. But with journaling, you can really just put it in your pocket and bring it wherever you go, like on the metro, if you're waiting in between meetings or something. So I think that's very practical. So thank you so much.
I send out little journal prompts too, to help kind of keep whatever comes through me. I figure it's going to connect with somebody else. So those little journal prompts, when people get stuck, it started like that. Like, I don't know what to write. Okay, well, here comes the soul whisper. And so I send out journal prompts for people to help, connect in.
That's beautiful, Zia. I think we can probably put those in our newsletter too if you have them on your website or something like that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. It's really a blessing to be here.